Mr. P's Science and Math Podcasts. For more science and math concepts, search me out on iTunes by typing Papapodcasts. You can contact me at papapodcasts@gmail.com. Other Papa Podcast titles include Chemistry Podcasts, Math Podcasts, which look at quadratic functions, polynomials, trigonometry, linear mathematics, and Physics Podcasts. Thank you for watching.
Converting units. Now, when we're looking at distance units, let's start off from our highest set of units that we're going to be looking at. Kilometers, we're going to divide by 1,000 to get to our meters. From meters, we're going to move to our next set of units, which we're going to be using our centimeters. And to do that, we're going to divide by 100. Now, and that will give us our centimeters. Now, from centimeters to go to our lowest set of units that we're going to be looking at, our millimeters, we are going to divide by 10. So, when moving from the highest possible unit to the lowest, we'll be dividing our numbers. This is one way to remember how to convert our units. Now, if we're going to start from millimeters, from our lowest, we're going to do the opposite. The opposite of division, well, we're going to multiply by 10 to give us centimeters. We're going to multiply by 100 to give us meters. We're going to multiply by 1,000 to give us kilometers. So, when moving from the lowest possible unit to the highest, we'll be multiplying our numbers. So, I'm going to show you guys a chart. This is the chart. You have no choice but to memorize it. So you're going to memorize the following. We go from millimeters to centimeters. We go from centimeters to meters. We're going to go from meters to kilometers. What is the rule for remembering it? Well, what I like to do is I like to always place the number 1 next to the unit that is the biggest. Okay, so place a number 1 next to the unit that is the biggest. Between millimeters and centimeters, which is the bigger unit? Between centimeters and meters, which is the biggest unit? Between meters and kilometers, what is the biggest unit? So we have put the number 1 next to the units that are the biggest. And so what we want to do is we want to remember now from in 1 centimeter how many millimeters we have. And we have 10 millimeters. In 1 meter, we have 100 centimeters. And in 1 kilometer, we have 1,000 meters. So this is one thing you're going to have no choice but to have to memorize it. So remember, you're placing the number 1 next to the units when you're comparing between two of them. But again, they must be the units that go in that order. So if we look at the units that go in that order, we have to go from millimeters So we have to go really from millimeters to centimeters, then from centimeters to meters, and from meters to kilometers. So we must go in that order. Or vice versa, from kilometers to meters, then we jump. We're not going to do this. This is a no-no. We're not going to jump straight from kilometers to centimeters. We are going to follow a progression. Converting units. When converting units, we will multiply fractions. So if you know how to convert, you don't need to watch the rest of this. I'm going to show you guys my foolproof method of converting units. If you follow these steps accordingly, you will get every single question correct. Now, keep in mind the chart, of your converted units. And I'm going to show you that in a second. But again, the most important thing to remember is that we will be multiplying fractions. We will multiply fractions. Multiply fractions. Remember that. Multiply fractions. Convert 4 kilometers to centimeters. As I said, don't ever forget the following table. Always write that somewhere on your paper when you're doing any work. And remember, when we're comparing, we're going in the order from millimeters to centimeters to meters to kilometers, if we're looking at distance, and backwards. So kilometers to meters, meters to centimeters, centimeters to millimeters. And that's the order that I'm placing these side by side. So we're going from millimeters to centimeters, then we're going from centimeters to meters, then we're going from meters to kilometers. But the other rule that I said for you to remember is that we're going to include the number 1 next to the bigger of the two sets of units. So whichever units are the bigger, when we're comparing between meters and centimeters, we're going to draw, or we're going to write the number 1 next to it. We're comparing kilometers to meters. The bigger of the two units is the kilometers. So we put 1 in there, and we try to figure out, and we try to memorize how many fit in that 1 of those units. So, remember what the rule said? When converting units, we will multiply fractions. So start off with your original question. And we have for kilometers. Now, when we're multiplying fractions, remember this is a whole number. So treat this whole number as something over 1. Now, remember we said it's multiplying fractions. So when we're multiplying fractions, it means times a fraction, times a fraction. Okay? And that's pretty much multiplying fractions. So now in our fraction, we're going to use our fraction base to remove the units. So if we look at kilometers, we do not want kilometers. So for me to cross kilometers out, if I'm multiplying in a fraction, kilometers in my next set of fractions has to be in the denominator, because kilometers divides by kilometers to remove the kilometers unit. But now, what are we converting kilometers to? We are converting kilometers to meters. So we're going to put that unit up at the top. So between meters and kilometers, which is the bigger unit? And we're going to put the number 1 next to the bigger unit. So we have, in 1 kilometer, we have 1,000 meters. If I was to stop my question here, my unit will be in meters. But I do not want meters. So for me to remove meters, meters must be in the denominator of my next fraction. Now I can cancel or divide my meters out. But what am I changing meters to? I'm changing meters now to centimeters. So my top units are centimeters. And if we look at our question says we want centimeters. So we're going to stop right here. So between the two units, centimeters and meters, we put the number 1 next to the bigger of the two units. In 1 meter, as it says here, we have 100 centimeters. So centimeters are the units that we want. So once we found, or once we have divided out the units that we do not want, and we're down to our last unit, the one that we want, then we put our equal sign. And once we've put our equal sign, we create another fraction to simplify everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect everything I have here up at the top. So I have 4, I don't have the kilometers anymore, times 1,000 times 100 centimeters. In the bottom, I have 1 times 1 times 1. 1 times 1 times 1. So when I simplify the following, I'm going to have 4 times 1,000 times 100, which will give me 400,000. What are the units? Centimeters divided by 1. And we know that anytime we divide a number by 1, it's whatever that number is in the denominator. So therefore, this answer is 400,000 centimeters. So 4 kilometers is equivalent to 400,000 centimeters.